This is a walkthrough video for the system that I currently use to organize all of the research that I come across and the insights and takeaways that I come away from the research with. So it's using a free note-taking app called Obsidian. If you haven't heard of Obsidian, again, it's free, and out of all the note-taking apps that I've come across, it is the most enabling so far for this kind of task because of the way I can visualize things and link pages together all in the same place. So I'll get to that in a bit. Basically, I'm calling the system atomic research. So you may have heard of atomic note-taking or atomic thinking. Basically, this system enables me to get very granular with the individual logic steps that I take when going from individual research studies to takeaways. So I use it because I can visualize all the logic steps, and at the end, once I've created takeaways, I can trace back through those links that I've created between pages and find the original source for whatever, or sources for whatever was used to create the takeaway. So if you want to use this system, you'll need Obsidian with these plugins and Zotero with this plugin. So you'll definitely need Obsidian with Dataview, DB folder, and Metadata Menu, those three plugins. Now the other ones are optional, but I highly recommend Templater and Simple Canvas Search. And then Zotero is the reference manager that I use, and it works really well for this because it's got a citation key creator called Better BibTeX as a free plugin. So anyway, Obsidian is free, Zotero is free, and Better BibTeX is free. All these plugins, all this stuff is free. So I recommend all this. Now, there are some scripts that I also recommend. These are very simple to use. All this is going to seem very daunting at the beginning if you've never used Obsidian before. But I'll walk through each and every step, exactly how to use the scripts and how to navigate all the plugins, set everything up to make sure that it's going to be working correctly if you'd like to use it. So the first step is to install and enable the community plugins. So in Obsidian, to move this up a bit, you go down to the settings gear and then go into community plugins. You can browse, select a plugin to install, and then you want to install and enable it. So you'll see options to enable and disable. And now I'll go into the individual settings. So again, you'll need Dataview, DB folder, and Metadata Menu. Advanced slides you don't need, that's just for recording this video. And then in Dataview, these are all the settings. Many of these are stock. The only one that is necessary to change is to enable JavaScript queries. So make sure that is on. Everything else should be stock there. In DB folder, I have stickied the first column. That's just personal preference. Same with created date, modified date. And then I've added a folder for templates, which those will be very important later on. I highly recommend using templates for this. It makes the whole process much easier. And I like to increase the number of rows for each table and then decrease the font size a bit. Everything else should be stock. And then in Metadata Menu, we'll go through everything, but the only piece that needs to be changed is in FileClass settings. So what you need to do is create a folder for the class files. We'll need to create one class file for all of this to work, so there needs to be a folder for it. And what you'll notice is as soon as you create this folder, well, I'll show it in just a second. Other than that, everything else is stock, as you can see there. Now, I've named this folder classes, and I've left this file name and the field alias as FileClass. So this classes folder, whatever yours is named, you'll notice that it has a purple icon with a plus sign, and that allows you to create a new file class within the folder. So there's also simple canvas search. I did not turn this on. And then templater, all I did was create a folder for the templates. Everything else should be stock. All right. Now add at least one new database folder. So the way I have this set up is I have one folder for research, and then within there I have 5 different types of folders. One is to hold the assumptions that I make. One is to hold all of the insights that I draw from the research. One is to hold the source content, that would be like the graphs, all the text that I copy and paste from individual evidence sources. And then I have one for studies, that's just one type of evidence source, so I have one database folder specifically for that, and then takeaways there's a folder for that as well. Now, once you have at least one database folder created, actually I forgot a step, you need to right-click on that folder and create new database folder. So it won't create a new folder. What that will do is turn this into a database folder, and it will create a page with a table like this. Now for each of the tables, what I recommend doing is, actually we'll do that in the next step. Okay, for now, create a canvas. So what I've done is created a folder called canvases, and then I've added a blank canvas and added some stuff to it. So now we need to add a class. So click on the plus icon. And create a class. And then go into FileClass fields, create a new one, and give it a name. And it has to be canvas, so it has to be the specific type. And the reason is this will allow us to connect pages together in a canvas just using the arrow. So select canvas, and then select the path of the canvas. That's why you need to have a canvas made already. Whatever canvas if you've had more than one, they should all show up here. So just select the one you want to use for creating the links between these items. And now very important is to select outgoing. So this is really important for the system because this is how the scripts will work to trace back through links to find the original sources for whatever takeaways you are creating. And then click Save down at the bottom, the check mark. Okay. And now add content. So what I've done already is added some stuff into this canvas. I've added, actually I need to bring this up. So you can right click and then create group. And so I've created several groups already. I've created one giant group to hold everything, and then I've created a source group, source content group, insights, and then over here I've created one for takeaways and assumptions inside of another group. So what this helps with is to visualize as you go from left to right across the canvas. That's basically going from the original source up to the takeaways. And now to add more content, the way I recommend doing this is to start with the source. So in this case, it would be to add a study into the studies tab here, or into the studies folder. You can do this a couple of different ways. You can click add within the table and then select the template that you want to use for the study. Or you can right click on the folder itself and click, if you use the template or plugin, then you can create new note from template, which you can't see actually. So if you right click on the folder, create new note from template, then it will let you select the template you want to use. So in this case, I have created a study from the evidence sources template that I have. You can see that I've got a folder for templates. These are the templates that I use. And we'll take a look at each of those as well. But for now, this is why I like to use Zotero and the Better BibTeX plugin. So if we look at Zotero, then when you click on a study in Zotero, as long as you're using the plugin, then you'll see citation key at the top right. So that's what I use for file names here. And then I will copy in the citation. Also nice in Zotero, you can right click on something, create bibliography, select the type, select copy to clipboard, click OK, and then you can paste that into a text field here. So to create fields, click on that plus icon and then select the type of field that you want to create. And in this case, I've added a text field called citation, and then most importantly, and you want to do this for each of the databases that you're using in the canvas. Whatever files you're using in the canvas, whatever databases that those belong to, you want to add a FileClass field. And to do that, you want to add FileClass as a select field. And what that will allow you to do is to go into settings and then add labels and values to be selected. So in my case, the reason mine is called FileClass is within the metadata menu settings. In the FileClass settings, I left this as stock. I didn't change this. And so by default, it's called FileClass. So I would just take this, copy it, and then add that as a select column. And what that will do is that will automatically give the column ID the name of FileClass as well. And then the actual class that I'm using, so I've added several new classes, but for all the stuff in the canvas, mine is using the FileClass research links. So I would want to add an option down here. That's why these are research links. So what you would do is whatever your file class is named, paste that in, click add, and then you can double check that it worked by leaving settings and coming back, and you'll see it down at the bottom. So that allows you to select research links or whatever your file class is named. And what that allows is for the whole system to work. That will enable you to, whatever file has that file class in the canvas, whatever you point, you connect it to something else with an arrow, it will add that page that you connected it to, add a link to it in the front matter as a property in the file itself. So I'll demonstrate that in just a minute. So what I would do is basically start from the left side of the canvas and then add things going to the right. So in this case, I've added a source already. I added that study, and the next step would be to add source content. So the way that I've got this system set up is I can click within an individual study. So you can go into the table and you can click on it, or you can navigate over to the filing system and click on it there. But I set up the page to hold content from the study itself. So this is nice because it means that I don't have to leave Obsidian to look at any of the study materials. I can just copy and paste them into a page in Obsidian and always have them for reference. So the way I can reference them is once I've copied and pasted stuff inside of here, as long as I've sectioned it off. So I've called this section figure 2t because that's what I've put in here. Maybe if it was a methods section, I could copy and paste text from the methods and then add a new header. And then paste the text in there. The important thing is that it's got a header, because that enables you to link directly to this material, this content, from another page. So we can see that if we go back to the canvas, the next step would be to add source content. And so to do that, you can go to the source content table and then add something new, select a template to add it from or to use. And I've already done that. And what I've done is I've added this link. So I've embedded a link. So from the study itself, I'll just go back, I'll grab the name. And so basically I've added content into the study page, and now I want to be able to reference that content as a unique page itself, and then link it back to the study, or link out from the study to the content. It'll all make sense here in a bit. So what I've done is just copied this name, the file name, because I like to use that as a point of reference inside of the source content. So I've used that as part of the title here and then called it figure 2t because I want to create a page specifically for that figure inside of Obsidian. So now inside of this page that's specific to figure 2t in that study, I want to embed material from that other page. So exclamation point and then 2 brackets, and then you paste the name of the study and then add a hashtag. By adding a hashtag, it allows you to select a section that you want to reference or embed from the other page. So I want to embed figure 2t. So now I can come to this page and see figure 2t and not have to try to find it inside of here. I could just use this study page to log all the content inside of this from the study that I think is important or that I want to reference later, and then create unique pages for each one of them individually. You'll see other stuff in here, assumptions, original source. I'll go into that a bit later. What's important now is just that at this step of the process, we have created a page for the study and we have derived content from the study. We've added content from the study into Obsidian, and we've created a unique page specifically for that content. Now this is one of the really cool parts about Obsidian. I'll just get rid of some of this stuff I did before, and we will look at this individual page. So right now you'll see that this is empty. And for this page, you'll see that same area in the front matter is empty. But now as soon as I draw an arrow between these two, you'll see that this one has that connection as a link. I can click on it and go to that page. Don't worry about this, it's just got to do with the table that I set up. But we see that this page does not have that link because it's being linked to There's an outgoing link from here to here. That's why it's so important when you create this class that you select outgoing. So the link goes this way, it appears in here, it does not appear in here. And that's really nice when we want to backtrack through all of the links using scripts to find the original sources. So at this stage, I've got a source, I've got some source content, I've connected them together, and now I want to add some insights that I derived from that source content. So in this case, it's a graph looking at mesenchymal stem progenitor cells and their BRDU incorporation. So it's a way to try to measure proliferation in cells, and is comparing some fasting groups to fasting group to some control groups. So I've got some just insights that I've derived from this. I've got some thoughts on it, like, okay, well, from this graph it looks like the mouse fasting mimicking diet increases BRDU incorporation into these stem cells. Okay, and then I've got some other insight that I could draw from the same graph. From one graph or piece of content or whatever, you could derive multiple insights. But now the cool part is that you can connect them together. So we'll say from this one graph I've derived multiple insights, and we can double check that everything worked correctly. So you can open this up, you can see that it is connected with outgoing links to those two pages, and these pages have nothing, they're not connected to anything, but because of the code that I've added to this area, it does recognize that a source content page is being connected to this. So it's looking backwards through that link and seeing that, okay, there is some source content that is being used as the evidence for this insight. That's really how to interpret this. These are basically layers of evidence for the insight. And then you can get very deep with these insights. You can say, okay, well, these two insights are unique, but they can actually be combined to create a more detailed insight, or essentially a more broad insight, something that could be, that is, you have a bit less confidence in and of itself, maybe, but it allows you to be more flexible with what you can derive from it. So for example, in this case, this is specifically looking at mouse stem cells. Maybe this insight is about human stem cells. So you could say that the FMD increases BRDU incorporation into human stem cells. Now, it's taking quite a leap, but could still potentially make that as an insight, as long as you log assumptions about it. Say, okay, well, I don't know for sure that that's the case, but I'm going to hypothesize that. So you could even word it that way. You could say, fasting mimicking diet may increase BRDU incorporation into human cells, human stem cells. So it's perfectly fine to draw that conclusion, that possibility, or hypothesize, but in that case you would want to add an assumption, or probably a lot of assumptions, because that's quite a leap that you're taking with that kind of claim. So you could add one assumption, you could make another assumption. The purpose or the benefit here is that whatever logic jumps or logic steps you're taking along the way, to essentially to make this data usable in other ways. So there's lots of insights you can create directly from the data, but maybe you're interested in fasting and you're thinking maybe, okay, well, there's no human data to say that stem cells are definitely going to proliferate after a fast, but there is some mouse data, how do I log all of my thinking behind the possibility that the mouse data could translate to humans? And so that's what this sort of thinking really enables you to do, is to log that process, and especially log all the assumptions that you make along the way, because sometimes the assumptions are very, very big, or they illustrate very big questions that exist, or knowledge gaps in the research itself. So when you this assumption I actually made inside the assumptions database already. So new assumption about bone marrow mesenchymal stem cells, and I've already added it into here, so it was available for me to link to. But if I want to make another assumption, then I can do this very quickly by right-clicking on the assumptions folder, adding a new note from template. I would select the assumptions template, and then I would give it a title of whatever I want to assume. So this is new assumption about whatever. Now I would copy that title, go back to the canvas, and you can't see it, so I'll bring this up. You select drag to add note from Vault, and I would drag it into, you could drag it in anywhere, and then paste the file you actually want to add, the title, and then personally I would move it into the assumptions group. Now these groups don't have any actual functions right now. I've seen some people get really creative with, as soon as a note gets dragged into a group, you can use Metadata Menu to automatically add information into the front matter, like add a group or a tag, or I don't know all the possibilities, but it seems that there are a lot. So you can get very creative there, but for the purposes of the system how the system is currently set up, I don't have any of that other extra functionality right now. Let's say I want to have, this is a big logic leap, right? To say that whatever is happening in the mouse stem cells, I think it's going to be the same in human stem cells. I would want to probably log a lot of assumptions along the way. So I would want to connect a lot of assumptions to this page. And then we can look at the page and we can see that those assumptions are created. And because of the bit of code that I've added, it looks at all the outgoing links and sees which ones are assumptions, and then logs them and lists them here for you. So you can probably see where this is going. You can get as intricate, you can create tons of insights, you can link them all together, and essentially set up a hierarchy or just a series of steps between whatever sources and source content you've got in Obsidian, and ultimately link it to takeaways you've taken from the research. And perhaps most importantly, you've logged the assumptions you make along the way. So the logic steps are super important, obviously, because they are like breadcrumbs. You can come back to this at any time, and you should be able to follow the logic that you used to come to some conclusion or some hypothesis. But the assumptions are really, I think, an overlooked aspect of research that people may talk around, but there are so many assumptions embedded in all kinds of, like in basically every study. You look at the discussion section and see if you completely agree with whatever they have said about the results section. And they may change the wording to acknowledge that some things are assumptions. But I guess the big point here is that in any interpretation of data or using data to take some next step, many assumptions are embedded along the way or accumulated along the way. And so it's important to log those, in my opinion. So, and now with the templates, we can take a look at each individual template that I've got. If you want to set it up the same way, So if we start at the beginning, evidence sources, so I've got a place for content and then a section for assumptions. Inside there, if you use backticks, you can, when you're using Dataview, you can do 3 backticks, Dataview.js, and then dv.view, and in parentheses, the file you want to link to. And so this is called linked assumptions. And that goes to, basically that references the linked assumptions.js script. And this is the script for it. And then it's got database fields at the very end. So you may remember that in Dataview, I may have pointed this out, I may not have. Sorry, in DB folder, I like the position of new inline fields to be at the bottom. So by default, DB folder will put these at the very top. And so what that means is when you create a table and you create a file and then you begin adding fields that link to other databases, relation fields, or there may be other ways that it does it, but basically as it creates new inline fields, it will add those information at the top. So I'll create one right now. So maybe we wanted to create a relation field this is source content, so maybe studies. If I created a relation field, and then added something, you'll see that that's now added to the bottom. If we didn't select bottom in the DB folder settings, this would end up at the top. So I've set up each of the templates to have database fields at the as an actual heading, and it's at the bottom so that it just shows that whatever appears down here is some database field, and basically to ignore it. Anyway, so that is evidence sources. Got the assumptions here, and then we go to source content. We've got content also. This is where we embed stuff. Also have the same assumptions code being used there, and then this is different code. This is original sources, another script that is here. And I'll make all these scripts available on my blog if you want to use them yourself. So then there are assumptions doesn't have any outgoing links to it. I guess I could log all of the things that are linked to an assumption, but right now I just don't think that's super important. But in insights, we've got the assumptions code, then we've got supporting insights, because in the insights folder there will be all of the insights, and some of them are linked to each other in basically to set up a hierarchy. So this will look through and find whatever insights directly support the insight being created. So that is this code supporting insights here. And then at the end we've got takeaways. So takeaways can have assumptions added to them. They will have insights that directly support them, and then this will trace back to find the original sources and database fields at the bottom. All right, so that illustrates how the system works. And just to illustrate finally, if we used 2 insights as support for this insight, then we would see both of those. In here, both insights up here. And then if yeah, so anyway, that should illustrate the system well enough. And I think we can go on to, looks like this is reset, so we have added content. And now avoiding issues. So when you play around with this, you might notice some potential issues, or you might come across some issues. So how to avoid these? Issues that I have found are, if you've used Obsidian before, you probably know this, but don't delete all the hashtags of a heading if you are embedding it. So in here, I have linked specifically to figure 2t in here. If I completely got rid of these hashtags, then it won't be able to find that reference anymore. Or if I kept the hashtags, but I named it something else, then this won't be able to find it anymore. I'll have to change the name there as well. So just something to keep in mind. Again, if you've used Obsidian before, you probably know all this stuff. What else is there? We've got don't add commas or quotation marks to titles. Okay, quotation marks will break the whole thing. Basically, say this link right here, if this had quotation marks in it, actually we can play with this. If I added a quotation mark here, like this, this completely breaks. I don't understand why, but as you can see, this is what it looks like in source mode. Having those quotation marks here, I can only guess that it's because quotation marks are important for the way that things are linked here. But anyway, that will break it. So you've got to get rid of these. And if you do run into that issue, then believe you have to come back and fix this manually. Now it works again. Commas. If you add commas into the name, what I've found so far is that, so I said titles, but it's really file name. If you add a comma, then what that will break is this column. And this column isn't working for whatever reason right now. I don't know why. But what I've done is, if you add a column, a text column, by the same name as the select item, so research links, text column called research links, at least how it is working in my main vault, it will take the list of items here and show it inside of the table as a list of items. But if you have a comma in the file name, then it will, instead of showing links, it will just show titles, and it looks like a mess. So anyway, it's not working here. You can try it, try adding text column and see if it works for you. But if you do get it to work, just realize that commas in the file names will break that, make it look weird. Now, probably the biggest issue here, well, outside of the quotation marks, is that the canvas, linking things within the canvas, if you notice any slowdown at all, stop linking. And in fact, whatever you had if you had just linked something, go and double check that the link was actually added inside of the page. So what I found is that it really seems like if I have too many tabs open or windows open or whatever that are all using Dataview, then Dataview can get overloaded, Obsidian gets overloaded, and if you continue to create links inside the canvas, Dataview will not actually create those links between the pages. I don't understand it. It could be a metadata menu issue. I really don't know. But what I'm finding is that if Obsidian is giving a hint that it is lagging, just pause, give it time to catch up, make sure the last thing you did that involved those links actually worked. Give it time to catch up, or restart Obsidian and then go back to your work. Whatever you do, don't continue adding links inside the canvas. Or if you do, make sure they're actually adding inside the pages themselves, which again is really easy because you can, as soon as you add a link between notes, you can just open it up and double check that whatever link you created in the canvas was actually linked here as well. All right, I think that is the main set of issues I've come across. Yeah, so a general overview of the system, just to wrap it up. The benefits are the visibility. You can look at all the logic steps and the assumptions that you make along the way, and it enables you to get very granular with it. And I'm finding that it's helping me think through all of the logic steps and really make sure that they make sense, that I have confidence in them. If I don't have a lot of confidence, I can at least log on my assumptions in order to use them further down the pathway into the assumptions. And the traceability. So you can look back through all those links that you made and find the original source, or you can find the insights that were directly used to support something. Basically, you can find all of the original sources or things immediately used for support for whatever insight or takeaway that you've created. Drawbacks. There are numerous drawbacks, unfortunately. This is the very beginning stages of me testing the system out, but it is doing basically all the things that I really want, or some of the most important things I want in a research management system, a knowledge management system like this. So I've just gone all in on it for now. We'll see if it breaks, as it gets bigger. That's one of the biggest issues. So the system itself, efficiency, you could argue that it's inefficient to get real granular with all the logic steps like this, but I think that it's overall beneficial. There's a net benefit to it because it allows you to come back at any time and know exactly where you derived some insight, some takeaway from. Pages are linked via front matter. So we've already seen one issue with this. By adding quotation marks into the file name, you can break the link. So it seems a bit brittle right now, but as long as that's the only way that I've found to break it so far. So I just have to remember not to add quotation marks there. There's also a risk of circular logic. So as you might imagine, as this thing continues to grow and grow and grow, add more studies, add more insights, and lots of arrows going everywhere, you may accidentally create a circle of logic. And I would assume that doing this would give false positives in the original sources area. You might have extra sources that aren't actually used to support whatever the insight or the takeaway is that you're looking at. I haven't done this yet, but again, as I imagine as this scales up, that could become an issue. Risk of slowdown. So the only times that I've seen major slowdown with this, again, is if I've got just too many tabs open inside of Obsidian. especially if they all use the Metadata Menu or Dataview plugins. So just be wary of that. Getting lost in the canvas, again, that's just something I'll have to see as the system grows. And yeah, that's it. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. I'm Zach. This is part of my learning journey, and I thought that it would be helpful for some other people that log research and can draw conclusions from research and try to act on the available research out there. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. If you liked it, didn't like it, let me know. If you have ideas to upgrade it, I'd love to hear them. Especially if you know your way around metadata menus or Dataview and see other places for those to plug in that I haven't looked at yet. So anyway, that's it.